What's up, everybody? Benji Bruce here, Speaking Lifestyle. How do you follow up with events that seem interested, but then all of a sudden they kind of just delay the response? They delay it, they ghost you, they stop responding to you. What do you do? Like, how do you follow up in this situation? This happened to me a while ago, and then when I followed up, I actually got, this was like one of my first $30,000 gigs. And in the beginning, it's like I contacted them, they were responding, then all of a sudden it seemed like they were delaying the decision, and they were like, yeah, we're interested. So I was sending them an email like, okay, here's a contract. All right, like, what's the deal? They just wouldn't reply back too often. And then all of a sudden when I would stop, then let's say a month, 2 months would go by, then they respond again. Oh yeah, we're close. And I'm thinking like, come on, man, like, make a freaking decision. Eventually they did make a decision, they paid. And so what do you do in that sort of situation? So, well, first things first, don't get frustrated, all right? So don't get frustrated in terms of like, oh man, these people, they ghosted me, or oh, they're taking too long to actually respond. So don't get frustrated from the very get-go. And you need to think in terms of at what point did they stop responding to you? Because this is gonna tell you exactly, well, not exactly, but it's gonna give you an idea of why they stop responding. And so it'll allow you to fix things in the future, things like that. So like, let's say you send them an email and you pitch them. So if you're following the Speaking Lifestyle process, the Speak Pro Academy process, you send email number one, which is, hey, who hires the speakers? They reply back, then you pitch them. If they stop responding after the pitch, so you pitch them, they just ghost your ass, then at that point, it usually says, either one, your website sucks, you got a horrible freaking speaker website, or two, your pitch sucks. Like, so it usually says one of those. And then when you have certain like email software that kind of tells you, it'll like tell you the click-through rate, stuff like that, then you could narrow it down to, well, was it the subject line, was it my website, or was it the email pitch? You can narrow it down. But if you pitch and then they stop responding, that gives you an idea of, hey, usually it's your website or usually it's your pitch. It could be a combination of both. If they stop responding after you quote your fee, so you quote your fee, hey, it's gonna be $10,000 to have me come and speak, and they stop responding, what that usually says is that you were too high for their budget. That's what it usually says. So you're sitting there, you're talking, they're like, yeah, we're interested, what do you charge? You ask them questions about the event, all right, tell me about this stuff, they respond, they're like, it's gonna be $10,000 for an hour, and they just ghost your ass, and you're just like, what? Well, what that usually says is that you were too high for their budget. They just don't want to come back and say so, because it's almost like they're embarrassed. So it's kind of like they're a little bit embarrassed to say like, oh, we only have $1,000. So that's like the main reason for that sort of situation. And then let's say like after you send the contract, so let's say you go through the whole process, the whole pipeline. Remember, it's incoming questions, quote, contract, and closed. So you're going through the pipeline, incoming lead, you contact them, they're like, oh yeah, well, what do you charge? So they express some sort of interest. You know the next stage is ask questions. Hey, tell me about your event, blah, blah, blah. You ask questions, and then all of a sudden you quote, hey, it's gonna be $10,000 for an hour. They're like, okay, cool. Then you send a contract, hey, sign this thing, and then bam, delayed response, or they ghost your ass at this point. Well, what that usually tells you, it tells you they actually are interested, but usually they're busy. So it's like they're interested, they just forgot about your ass. And so a lot of times with this, like it could be accounting, like maybe they got to send it to accounting, they got to go through this whole thing. So what you got to do, you just got to make sure that you follow up. On top of that, when you send the contract, you're actually going to give them a deadline. And it's not like this deadline is like a real deadline. It's more of a deadline to kind of tell them, hey, hurry your ass up. So what I do is when I send the contract, I say like, okay, we need this contract back by this date. And it's usually like a week from them, from that point, like a week, 2 weeks maximum. And it doesn't matter if they send it a week, 2 weeks, it doesn't matter. But you kind of tell them like, hurry up, son. So that's like the purpose of doing that. But you need to know, when do they stop responding to you, because that's going to tell you exactly, well, not exactly, but it's going to give you an idea of why they stop responding to you. So your follow-up is really going to depend on the event. So you're sitting there, you're following up, and they're kind of delaying the response. Your follow-up is going to depend on the event. So how bad do you want to do this event? If you want to do the event really bad, like, you know, hey, it's a big event, they expressed interest, all that sort of stuff, you follow up freaking to infinity. Like, there is no moment when you stop following up until they say, look, man, you're following up too damn much. get out my face. And then in that case, you say, are you sure, man? I'll follow up with you 2 months from now. No, so the follow-up really depends on the event itself. So what you're doing is you're creating a sales cadence with a lead score. So your sales cadence is just how often you follow up. So it's like you send out email number 1 on day 1, you wait a couple days, then you send out email number 2. So your sales cadence just tells you how often you're going to follow up. Your lead score tells you, it basically says, here's the events that are more likely to pay. Like, here's the events that are more likely to hire me or you type thing. So, let's say conferences have a negative lead score because conferences rarely pay speakers. Whereas employee events, they have a positive lead score because they always pay speakers. And so what you're doing is you're combining the sales cadence with the lead score. So as you're talking to the event, you're check marking your lead score off. That way, okay, this event has 500 plus employees or 500 plus people at the event, and so on. So you're doing that, and that gives you an idea of how often to follow up and stuff like that. So make sure you're doing that. And as time goes on, your follow-up extends. So in the beginning, you follow up more often. And then if they stop responding or they're responding less, you now space it out a lot more. So in the beginning, you follow up, let's say you send out email number 1, you wait 2-3 days, you send out email number 2, you wait 2-3 days again, send out email number 3, you wait 4-5 days, send out email number 4, you wait 2 weeks, you send out email number 5, you wait 3 weeks, and now email number 6. And so it extends the longer this whole thing goes. No matter what stage you are in the pipeline, it always extends like that. So if you're at, let's say, you're at the quote stage, you quote them, and then it's like, all right, now they just ghosted your ass. Well, at this point, you send an immediate follow-up. Like, let's say you wait a couple days because you quoted them. They all of a sudden don't respond. 3 days later, you send a follow-up. Hey, man, what the hell? Don't say that in your follow-up, but you follow up, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, you wait maybe, 3-4 days more. Hey man, what the hell? And then all of a sudden you wait maybe a week, 2 weeks. Hey man, if you don't do something, I'm gonna pimp slap your mama. And then you wait so that's kind of what you're doing. Like, even in your follow-up, you're extending it. And so what you're really trying to do in terms of this whole situation is you want to make sure you're juggling multiple balls, juggling multiple balls. What I mean by that is you always want to be contacting events. You're always contacting events. So even though you're following up with these guys, you're contacting all these people over here. The ultimate place that you want to be is where you have zero follow-up. What I mean by that is not zero follow-up because your ass is lazy. What I mean is zero follow-up because you're so busy talking with people who are actually interested that you don't care about these people who didn't respond even when you sent the contract to them. So think about, let's say a celebrity. So I don't know, JayZ or whatever. So let's say JayZ. Do you think JayZ is following up with events? Like they say, hey, JayZ, we want to have you come do your rap game at this concert, whatever. Come on, do your thing. And so JayZ, the people respond. All right, cool. And then all of a sudden the event, let's say they stop responding for a little bit. You think JayZ is going to really follow up all that much? Probably not, because he has a ton of people saying, hey, JayZ, we want to bring you in on this date. Hey, JayZ, we want to bring you in on this date. So he has a lot of people coming into him, so he doesn't need to follow up with all these people. That's where you ultimately want to get to. So not following up because your ass is lazy, following up because your ass is busy. So that's where you want to get to. The only way you get busy. The only way you get busy is by actually contacting events nonstop all day, every day. And eventually you're going to keep following up. And then it's going to be a lot less follow up just because so many events are actually responding to you. So you're paying more attention to these guys than to these guys. But that's ultimately what you're going to do when you're sitting there, you're contacting the events, and then it's kind of like they either stop responding to you or it's like a delayed response. They're not really making a decision. And what you want to do towards the end, this is the final email, and this is actually an email inside of Speak Pro Academy. What you're doing is in the final email, you're not basically saying, hey, would you like to still hire me? You're making a statement. You're saying like, hey, I'm just going to assume this is a no-go, so thanks. Like, that's kind of what you're doing in the final email. I mean, it's worded better inside of Speak Pro Academy, the email templates, but that's kind of what you're doing in the final email. It's like, hey, man, I'm just going to assume this is a no-go, so I'm going to contact other people. It's like you're breaking off the relationship. And that email, hands down, gets the best response rate out of everything. So that's what you do when you're sitting there, you're following up with events. They kind of either just not respond or it's like a delayed response. So just think in terms of at what point in the pipeline do they stop responding to you? That's going to give you an idea of why they stop responding. Like, do they stop responding because you quoted the fee? Like, if you quoted the fee and they stop responding, usually that's just a sign of hey, they don't have a big budget. So like, let's say because you know that, you can follow up. Like in the beginning, you're following up, hey man, where's my money? Where's my money? But then all of a sudden you can follow up with, oh, do you guys, is it like a lower budget or something? Like then you follow up like that. Then all of a sudden you'll see a response. They'll say, oh yeah, it's actually a lot lower than $10,000. You say, well, what is the budget? And so that's how you follow up. You follow up based on where they stopped responding to you, where they delayed the response. Now you can change how you react to that situation. And then bam, go get your money.